joint with some other committees, is hereby called to order since it's already 10 a.m. I believe that Senator Marcos is already present online, so I'd like to thank her for joining me today. For today's hearing, we have put in the agenda only one specific bill on the creatives industry authored by Senator Marcos. But I think we have a lot of resource persons present. So can I ask now the committee secretary to make their online presence of record by mentioning their names and organizations? Secretary, Madam Secretary, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Thank you for allowing me to acknowledge our resource persons for today's public hearing. From the Department of Trade and Industry, we have Undersecretary Rafaelita Aldaba, Mr. Kenneth Bunas, Ms. Joy Belcasin, Mr. Antonio Sidayaw, and Mr. Noni Agulto. From the IPO field, we have Attorney Emerson Cuyo. From the Department of Tourism, we have Attorney Lucille Karen Malilong Isberto, Attorney Viveca Lopez, Sherwin Manuel, and Ms. Maria Cristina Shuko. From the National Parks Development Committee, we have Attorney Sheriff Phoebe Dubal. From the Department of Science and Technology, we have Mr. Julius Liano Jr. and Mr. Janelli Kaya. From the Department of Labor and Employment, we have Attorney Ramon Saura III. From the Department of Education, we have Ms. Daisy Atienza, Mr. John Isaac Hilario, Mr. Ronnie Baldos, Mr. Sam Zoliven, and Ms. Eileen Supnad. From the National Economic and Development Authority, we have Mr. Ranel Ram Cheng and Ms. Telma Manuel. From the National Commission for the Culture and the Arts, we have Ms. Marichu Teliano. From the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, we have Mr. Ian Christopher Alfonso. From the Film Development Council of the Philippines, we have Ms. Rachel Villaluna. From the National Film Archives of the Philippines, we have Mr. Don Gervin Arawan and Ms. Vivian Bisaya. From the private sector, we have from the Business Processing Association of the Philippines, Mr. Ricky Salvador. From the Animation Council of the Philippines Incorporated, we have Ms. Marilyn Montano. From the Artists Welfare Project Incorporated, we have Ms. Jenny Bonto and Mr. Dennis Marazigan. And Ms. From Asosasyon ng Musikong Pilipino Foundation, we have Attorney Dulce Punzalan. From the Association of Accredited Advertising Agencies Philippines, we have Mr. Melvin Mangada. From the Cebu Furniture Industries Foundation Incorporated, we have Ms. Ruby Salutan and Ms. Lovely Flores. From Created Content Creators Association of the Philippines, we have Mr. Mago Del Mundo. From Creative Economy Council of the Philippines, we have Mr. Paulo Mercado. From the Game Developers Association of the Philippines, we have Mr. Alvin Juban. From Interguild Alliance, we have Mr. Paulo Villaluna, Mr. Carlito Sigion Reyna, Ms. Patty Lapus, and Mr. Benjamin Padero. From the International Council on Monuments and Sites, we have Ms. Maria Cristina Paterno. From the National Live Events Coalition of the Philippines, we also have Ms. Shakira Symes. And from the Philippine Fashion Coalition, we have Ms. Carissa Cruz Evangelista, Ms. Jackie Aquino, Ms. Esme Palaganas, Ms. Emmy Englis. From the Philippine Motion Picture Producers Association of the Philippines, we have Ms. Malu Santos, Mr. Joey Reyes, Mr. Quark Henares, Mr. Jojo O'Connor, Mr. Icy Torio, Attorney Kat Maniego, Attorney Joji Alonso, and Attorney Anne Janelle Yu. From the Red Roots Artists Cooperative, we have Mr. John Paul Dongonia. And from the United Print Media Group Philippines, we have Ms. Barbie Atienza. That's all, sir. Thank you, sir.
So thank you to all for your presence. Thank you, Secretary Jingle. Okay, so it would be impossible for me to memorize your names, no? So if you want to say something, just call my attention na lang and then mention your name and your organization. So in the meantime, we will recognize the author. To be very specific, we are tackling Senate Bill number 411, entitled An Act to Develop and Promote the Creative Industries of the Philippines, introduced by Senator Amy Marcos. So the author is now recognized. Senator Marcos, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to all my friends and associates in the private sector who have led the creative industries from the very, very beginning. May I simply say that this bill has become ever more urgent during the pandemic, given that the creatives have been among the hardest hit by the unemployment in the wake of the pandemic. It is exceedingly difficult to get jobs in the present day. Although online activity has ratcheted up, the reality is that sidelined workers have begun to lose their networks. There is a struggle to remain current, particularly in the digitally driven animation and game sectors. Their unused skills have atrophied, and there is a very clear decline in reading comprehension even after only a single year. So the other concern has been the losses of jobs concentrated among low-wage workers. So the hardest hit have also been the most vulnerable, and they are now threatened by replacement through automation. It is also exceedingly difficult for them to learn new skills, and training has actually declined, and retraining has not always been relevant or specific to jobs. The second concern has been the effect of the CREATE bill, which has particularly affected the animation and software industry, since so many of these companies are located in various ecozones. Creative content, according to the bill or the law, is part of Tier 3 activities, which are supposed to be given the most generous incentives. However, it does not seem to be very, very clear in the bill, and perhaps the chairman can look into this, if the creative industries qualify as creative content generators within the Strategic Investment Priorities Plan. Kasi di ba po, yun yung basehan ng pagbibigay ng incentives. Pero yung definition ng creatives, content generators, and other productions are not well understood at this point. Of course, it's a brand new bill, but perhaps our private sector can contribute to the definition of the same. And finally, we're all aware that the smuggling and infringement issues that have occurred during the pandemic have ballooned and simply hit our local creatives even harder, as the Bureau of Customs continue to impound work coming in from Filipinos overseas, and vice versa, refuse to allow the export, for example, of visual art and paintings. So nadagdagan pa yung problema, Mr. Chair, mula nung pandemic and our last hearing, between these triple threats of COVID, the CREATE, as well as the increase in smuggling and copyright and IPO infringement. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Marcos. Committee Secretary, are there additional resource persons who arrived later?
Sir,
Meron ba? Do we need to acknowledge them too?
Okay, sir. If it's okay, sir.
Yeah, meron?
Yes, meron pa po, sir.
Go ahead.
From the Film Development Council of the Philippines, we have Miss Mary Liza Dino. From the Department of Education, we have Mr. Jason Tadeo. From the Department of Trade and Industry, we have Miss Rhea Matute. So far, sir. Yun na lang po, sir.
So thank you. Okay, so we have heard this before, but we heard this bill together with many other bills. So we just gave it a short period of time. So, and this is a new idea. My impression is we will be recognizing an industry as a new industry, something which is composed of already existing industries or economic activities, which we will now be putting under one category. So, yeah, the last hearing was September 3, 2019 pa pala. So, I'm sorry for the delay, Senator Marcos. Okay, so
Wala, naabutan po ng budget yan pagkatapos na COVID.
so who wants to comment on the bill? Because I have read the bill, so I have already read the bill. My staff has read the bill, so we need your comments, please, on the bill. So who wants to go ahead? Raise your hand or state your name. Si Liza na. Liza, you want to go ahead? Because kilala ko papa mo eh. Sige, go ahead.
Magandang umaga po. Hi, Senator. The Film Development Council of the Philippines strongly supports...
Volume, please. Volume.
Clear na po ba? Ay. Hello? Yes. Am I clear
Yes,
na po? Okay. The Film Development Council of the Philippines strongly supports the efforts of the Committee on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship to champion and promote the development of the creative industry by coming up with legislations that would open opportunities for the industry to remain culturally and economically relevant. Likewise, we commend and acknowledge the committee as we table the proposed act to develop and promote the creative industries of the Philippines. We are optimistic that the discussions would be thorough and comprehensive to ensure that this initiative would be a good boost and support for the industry as we strive to be recognized and valued both in the local and international arena. The bill sought to establish Creative Industries Development Council to formulate the development and promotion of original Filipino content and protection and commercialization of Filipino intellectual property. This will empower our young and innovative entrepreneurs as the government capitalizes on their creative ideas and product. It's about time po that we capitalize on our talents po talaga and for us to really institutionalize this. These forge a permanent and perceptive plan that shall contribute to the progress of the creative industries in the Philippines. These creative industries, like the film and audiovisual industry, are instrumental not just in okay na po. Not just in generating economic growth, but of promotion and popularization of the socio-cultural aspects of the country. However, while we find the Senate bill to be generally in order, we would like to understand better the position that the Creative Industries Develop Council will be as vis-a-vis the existing government agencies. It should be established as a national public policy-making and regulatory agency working with other government agencies for the following purposes. setting of national priority goals through a whole-of-government approach for the creative industries through the national government agencies having jurisdiction over the private sectors within the creative industries. Ito po ang kailangan namin ngayon kasi marami na po sa aming mga ahensya ang may mga kani-kaniyang mga inisyatibo at mga programa para po sa industriyang sinasaklawan namin. Pero kailangan po namin ng alignment, kailangan po namin ng collaboration, kailangan po nating pag-isahin at mas maging streamlined ang ginagawang efforts ng iba't ibang ahensya para po wala po tayong duplication at mas ma-amplify pa po natin ang at mas maging cohesive po ang ating approach para to empower our creative industries. To create policies to be utilized for the government agencies for promotion, support, and growth of the creative industries. Streamline the line communication and coordination of all government agencies and private sectors covered under the proposed initiative for systematic approach in policy and program implementation, and the establishment of a special fund which should be made available for disbursement on the account of government agencies having jurisdictions over the private sectors involved. The functions of the council should hopefully not overlap with the functions of the existing agencies which are part of the creative industries. And we also would like to appeal to our to the Senate, to Senator Amy Marcos and those who are going to finalize this bill to please include the different agencies involved in the respective sectors. For example, the performing arts sector like music, theater, and dance shall be represented by Cultural Center of the Philippines. Audiovisual industry and new media shall be represented by the Film Development Council of the Philippines. The sector on publishing, printing, and literature like books, newspapers, magazines, periodicals, ebooks, and other printed and electronic materials can be represented by the National Book Development Board. His heritage and cultural sites like archaeological and historical sites, museums, libraries, and archival sites and exhibitions shall be represented by the National Historical Commission and National Museum.
Thank you for that manifestation, Mr. Marasigan. Actually, pwede na yung iba mong ideas, pwede nang gawing bill, separate bill. You teach creatives industry, pwede na natin gawang bill yan, separate. At saka, yung council to review and propose bills on the creative industry, we can write that, no? But of course, you feel free to approach your legislators. Dito naman din kami. Sino pa po? Who else wants to say something? How about the DTI Design Center? You were here first, ma'am. Si Ma'am Ria?
Yes.
Yeah, you're one of the earliest. You want to say something? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Chair. Actually, since we're part of DTI, so we've already been coordinating with USEC FITA and the other private sector members of the creative industry in crafting our position for the creative industries and the bill, no. But specific to Design Center of the Philippines, and on top of what was reported by USEC FITA, the Design Center of the Philippines is actually in partnership with the British Council of the Philippines for to do a scoping, to do a mapping of the Philippine design sector, the design innovation ecosystem, to understand the value chain as well as to understand the bigger ecosystem of the design sectors in the Philippines, not just within the design industry, but in a bigger design economy, meaning designers that may be in a non-design industry, working in a non-design industry. And we hope to be able to, one, primarily have a real, a standardized definition of design in the country, as well as the identification of the standard industry codes, again, to help the mapping, as well as to help in the statistical gathering of the design sector, as well as the occupational classification of the design industries, as well as the larger design economy. This is all in aid of the creation of the first national design policy of the country. Again, it's in aid of the goals of RA 10557, which is the Philippine Design Competitiveness Act of 2013, which sees which has an ambition of to promote an economy and society driven by design and creativity, responsive to our fast-changing times and reflective of the Filipino culture and identity, to enhance the competitiveness and innovation of Philippine products, create market-responsive design services while advocating for economic and environmental sustainability, and to advocate the protection of intellectual property rights to these ideas and innovations. So all the mapping is that one of the critical steps we see in being able to fulfill the mandate as well as the goals provided by RA 10557. And we hope to finalize the mapping as well as the first national design policy this year, 2021. Actually, we wanted to do it in 2020, but the work plan then is to do it a physical mapping. So now we had to recast the methodology primarily to do these surveys as well as statistical gathering online. And together with DTI, the work that is being done with PIDS, we are also working with the Philippine Statistical Authority on this with the hope of being able to create a creative industries account within the PSA to regularly monitor the improvement as well as the growth of the creative industries and also the design industries of the country.
What is the specific task or role of your agency, ma'am?
Well, since we were created in 1973, it was really to aid in the development of a new generation of entrepreneurs that is a non-traditional enterprise. So primarily, ang role ng Design Center is for product development to help in the export of goods. That's why we also belong to the trade promotions group of the Department of Trade and Industry. But as outlined in the RA 10557, the role of design is actually now going beyond the traditional definition of design, which is primarily in object making, but it's also a driver for innovation. So it's also more service oriented rather than just plain again object making or manufacturing of goods. So that is basically the transitioning of the agency to embrace also the other not domains but the other sectors of design, and primarily also to address well, our ambition is also to contribute to have design solutions for stickier problems, such as like what we're going through, like in terms of sustainability as well as the environment.
Mr. Chair,
But primarily it's for but primarily it's really to drive competitiveness, MSME competitiveness.
Thank you, Senator Marcos.
Yes, if I may just add, Design Center became the R&D basically of SITEM during the heydays of our export promotions effort.
Yes.
So parang sila yung nagre-research ng mga Filipino design, tapos they embarked on industrial packaging, which in the 70s didn't exist, and they helped in the exploration of bamboo and other fibers and its use in design and actual product development. So the chairman very perceptively actually observes that perhaps it's time to reevaluate given the diminishing role of exports in SITEM as well as in DTI. Baka kailangan talaga tignan din yan at ma-overhaul. Mr. Chair, if I may ask, nung nakaraang hearing po natin, naalala ko, natigil tayo dun sa IPO yung sa copyright infringement and how this will impact on the present copyright laws. It's been a very difficult crusade in the Philippines, where, as they say, copyright means the right to copy. So, kinakailangan siguro kausapin natin yung mga in charge dyan sa IPO, given the difficulties of monitoring digital content, and now the new or perhaps very, very old problem of the misappropriation of cultural assets for our indigenous people who have been exploited in many, many ways. And finally, I'd like to give a small leg up to our music industry, which has been the first and last victim of this issue of copyright. Siguro may IPO dyan, baka pwede tayong tulungan.
Is IPO feel present? Here, can I have your name, sir? Sandali.
Emerson, sir.
Emerson, yes.
Mr. Chair, yes.
Emerson Cuyo, yes, sir. Sige, can you react, please?
There is a separate recommendation. First, sir, on the amendment of the IP code. The present IP code was passed in 1998, so it's been several years since the law was passed. So there is a need to amend the law in order to update it to the developments of the time. So meron na po sa lower house po, there is already a bill discussing amendments on the IP code. So pwede po siguro doon. As to the question of Senator Amy Marcos on what can we do for our indigenous peoples, as we have manifested in the previous meeting of a different committee,
So he got cut off, no? Senator Marcos, he got cut off. So
Oo nga eh. Yeah, maybe we can ask them how they can help us kasi medyo bloody ang copyright dito sa atin eh.
basta don't forget, even if you have made a manifestation this hearing, please
Mr. Chair.
give us still written inputs or position paper. Natanggal na naman si Emerson. So who's seeking recognition? Sandali, mama. Attorney Ponsalan. Ponsalan.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Si Emerson nga. Emerson, your signal is very erratic, so we will recognize first Attorney Punsalan, the Corporate Secretary of Asosasyon ng Musikong Pilipino. Sige ma'am, go ahead.
Yes. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank Senator Pimentel and Senator Marcos for mentioning both the SB 411 together with the Philippine Bamboo Industry Development Act of 2019 because I am the World Bamboo Ambassador to the United Nations Global Compact, which is actually the largest sustainability initiative of the United Nations. And many of our resource speakers here and advocates are in the creative industry are part of that. Now, I would like to support what Attorney Emerson Cuyo has mentioned. And I would like to direct our attention also to the existing National Intellectual Property Strategy or NIPS project, which is already launched, which was launched May 30 of 2017 by the IPO together with the World Intellectual Property Organization. And many of the creative industry stakeholders participated in several deliberations for this. And the National Intellectual Property Strategy is aligned with the Ambition 2040. And this is the 5-year framework of the NIPS is all from 2020 to 2025. Now, since Attorney Cuyo is here, he may be able to evaluate or elaborate further on the NIPS. Now, going back to the draft substitute bill in the House of Representatives, which Mr. Paulo Mercado mentioned, this can be harmonized with, I believe, the SB 411. I fully support Senator Marcos's suggestion and also Senator Pimentel's recommendation to keep the number of members of the CIDC to the essential, because other resource speakers and other members may be taken in later on. On the comments for the wider scope of the powers and functions of the CIDC, I would like to manifest the adoption of the following. In terms of infrastructure support, the Creative Industries Development Plan for the short, medium, and long term, which includes digitalization, tax incentives, especially for creative enterprises, and importantly, access to credit financing, as well as capacity building, instruction, and education. I would also like to point out in the section regarding the budget allocation or appropriation. Senate Bill 411 proposes an allocation of 500 million pesos, while its counterpart bill in the House of Representatives draft substitute bill proposes an allocation of 5 billion pesos. And the HREP draft substitute bill and the Senate Bill 411 are similar in purpose. However, the draft substitute bill in the Congress has additional sectoral representation and delineation of duties and has a wider scope, specific project timetables, Mr. Chair. AMP, or the Association of Musikong Pilipino, we will be submitting our official position paper. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. I will recognize the others, but let me first recognize our DOST representative.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Julius po. Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Apo Aimee. This is from the Department of Science and Technology po. We would just like to also thread along that line about research and development. So maybe in part or in full, this could be considered. And I'll just read it from our part of our position paper, that to promote and support the continuous innovation of the creative industry, part of the support that could be identified in the bill, probably in Section 6, may merit a separate clause on research, development, and innovation. It will put emphasis and basis on the allocation of resources for projects in support of the industry and for the central direction and synchronization and harmonization of government's effort in research, development, and innovation. So we could probably consider including research, development, and innovation support, that the central direction, leadership, and coordination of R&D and innovation in support of the creative industries shall be, as mandated by our own mandate as DOST, be with the DOST in the development of the enabling products, technologies, and systems for the expression of, or as tools for the expression of creative work, shall be qualified under the framework of the creative industries R&D and innovation program. That's the first part po. The second one is we also are in support the creative instruction and education. We know that this mandate is lodged actually with DepEd, CHED, and maybe TESDA. But for the consideration of Apo Aimee, the DOST rin po is also rolling out products of our technologies and innovations to the different communities. For example, handloom weavers, even to our animators, etc. So this type of technology transfer mechanism is also part of the reinforcement as far as instruction and education of the creative sector. And those are the two main positions, Mr. Chair. And the last one is we also support the consideration of possible amendments to the IP code with respect to the interpretation and appropriation of copyrighted designs. We have also lengthily discussed this in Senator Ligarda's webinar sometime last week. There really is a problem with respect to the premise and framework of the copyright law that might not actually protect the cultural work. At the same time, it might also be too restrictive or too open or permissive for or in stifling naman the creative industry as a whole. So with those two, Mr. Chair, we will also be passing and submitting the written manifestation from the DOST. Salamat po.
Yes, we welcome Chief Lianyo, the written position paper. But sabi mo, please elaborate on yung restrictive, how the costs are became restrictive of creative.
Hindi naman po. We are looking at it from the vantage point po kasi I am particularly from the Philippine Textile Research Institute. So we are doing also a lot of innovation work as we move along. So yung IP code po, for example, if our in-house weaver or our in-house textile designer develops something, definitely the copyright law would be able to protect that. Ang problema is how do you now associate or protect naman yung inspiration niya, pinanggalingan niya. And we know these are all from cultural, di ba? From cultural origin. At the same time po, if we are into, pag nagbinaliktad naman po natin, for example, and mag-appropriate naman tayo on the cultural origin, it might also stifle yung ating pong creative industry. For example, the others who would want to venture into using or in being inspired, for example, of these creative iconographies or patterns or design. So yun lang po, on that part, is a very practical experience on our end, which we also have manifested with the IPUFIL regarding for that part.
Sige. Please add the discussion on that in your position paper.
Yes,
yes,
Mr. Chair. Yes, opo.
Yes, Senator Amy.
Yes, there have been requests on several occasions regarding sui generis copyright. We need a different premise, for example, for the IP communities who actually, firstly, ang problema, di ba yung copyright is specific to a certain individual. In many, many cases, these cultural assets belong to the entire ethnic community. So, paano i-register ron? Wala naman nagme-may-ari kasi it's come down through the ages and it belongs to the entire tribe, as it were. Ikalawa, yung problema ng timeline. Kasi may limitasyon yung ating IPO na hanggang 20-25 years lang yan. Samantalang alam natin na in perpetuity dapat pag-aari ng tribu yan. So, dapat ganon. On the other hand, restrictive naman kasi maganda naman na certain motifs really go from being merely tribal, ethnic, indigenous towards the mainstream. Halimbawa sa Mindanao, yung sari manok, hindi na yan pag-aari ng miskisino kasi tinuturing na natin yan bahagi ng ating heritage. So yung sari manok, siguro kailangan mag-bolt in na dyan yung NCCA at yung Design Center, tulungan yung IP. Paano nga ba i-register yung mga katulad nun without restricting or stifling creative juices, at the same time making certain that the commercialization will also be viable. So, may mga issues na ganun sa cultural heritage ng indigenous people. I think digital and particularly music has its own set of problems as well with IP.
So thank you. Attorney Cuyo is already online of IPO field. So, sir, we will allow you to continue. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. To continue on the issue of protecting our indigenous peoples and as regards their intellectual property, or what we call as traditional property rights, we have expressed our observation that in fact there are gaps in the present or existing IP system, particularly with its emphasis on the exclusivity of intellectual property rights. So our recommendation, Mr. Chair, has been to draft or devise a sui generis law or protection for our indigenous peoples. IPOFIL is willing to assist in the formulation of a proposed bill in this particular regards. I note lang po that yung question po on what if it's inspired. Actually, under the present copyright law, it covers protection for contemporary treatment of indigenous cultural expressions, yung traditional cultural expressions. But we need, again, because it's the inspiration is supposed to be a property of the community, we need to have the free and prior informed consent of these communities prior to registering them as the intellectual property or the copyrights of a particular individual. And if I may, Mr. Chair, since I already have the floor, can we also express our comments on Senate Bill 411? Okay. The IPOFIL in principle expresses support to Senate Bill 411, the creation of a creative industries development council that shall formulate and implement the development and promotion of Filipino content and the protection and commercialization of Filipino intellectual property is very much welcome and will complement the development functions of the IPOFIL. Indeed, the more laborers there are in the vineyard of intellectual property, the more fruits can be harvested from the system that would benefit not only the creative sector, but also the economic well-being of the country as a whole. In this regard, we actually have some preliminary observations on the bill. The IPOFIL notices in particular that there are matters therein that will directly or indirectly interface with the mandate and functions of the IPOFIL under the IP Code, such as, for example, Section 5D and I on enforcement, Section 7 on additional creative content rights, and Section 5H and Section 10 on registration of rights. IPOFIL respectfully seeks clarification on this, particularly as to the scope, nature, and the proposed implementation thereof. There is a need to determine if there is or would be overlaps with the functions of the IPOFIL. IPOFIL also respectfully suggests that the body also takes a look at the WIPO methodology on top of the mentioned UNCTAD and UNESCO methodologies, which is WIPO has made great strides in advancing studies on the economic contribution of the creative industries to national economies. Take note that comparability of the data across countries and jurisdictions is an important aspect moving forward. We also note that there was a mention earlier by Senator Amy Marcos of the commercial or business focus of the bill. As such, intellectual property is central and core to the creative industries. Thus, IPOFIL respectfully suggests that the committee consider the inclusion of the Intellectual Property Office in the list of government agencies that have to be consulted in the formulation and implementation of a national creative economy development plan under Section 5A. The IPOFIL also requests that it be given opportunity to submit further comments, a formal position paper, and inputs on the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Of course, the inputs from the IPOFIL are most welcome. Please discuss the overlap and how to avoid it. Kung pwede, Emerson, the possible overlap. Because we want to avoid that, di ba? We want to avoid that.
Yes, sir.
Emerson, yeah, we want to avoid that. Okay, that's what my impression also. Okay, so thank you. Sige, we'll go down the list here. Sandali. The Department of Tourism. Sino ba to? Sandali, Yes, Mr. Bengson. Here, Department of Tourism. Is he here?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is K. Malilong Isberto of Ngayong Filipino Foundation, the attached agency of the Department of Tourism. I was requested to attend on behalf of the DOT. Okay, so we welcome the creation of the council. It's about time that the business aspect of the creative and cultural industries gets emphasized. So over the years, there have been many programs in NCCA, for example, that sought to give protection. But as management changed, these were not implemented. In other countries, this kind of office would be lodged with its Ministry of Culture, specific to the protection of intellectual property. We appreciate the fact that Section 11 of the bill recognizes that many agencies are already involved doing bits and pieces of these things. And it's true that the need to check which mandates overlap need to be done. So at Ngayong Filipino Foundation, one of the mandates is actually research on social sciences and the humanities. And we have shifted our focus on studying the ecosystem of the creative and cultural industries, and then apply that to the design of the park that we are currently building in Parañaque. We are in talks with the FDCP as well as the NGO for creative content, CCAP, to help us create programs that would lead to high-value jobs and be a platform for showcasing the work of Filipino creatives and at the same time celebrate Filipino heritage. So we understand that creating a new government agency might take time, that organizing an office to do a plan might take years, even if this bill gets passed. So we would suggest that in the meantime, Ngayong Filipino, in convergence with other cultural agencies, have programs where we can build immediately a creative hub to service the needs of cultural and creative industry stakeholders. So we will also be submitting a more detailed position paper as well as descriptions of the programs that we intend to implement in the next 3 years with the groups that we mentioned.
Thank you, Lucille. So let's go to fashion and then games, no? So so fashion
Chair?
is yes, Senator Marcos.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to react, not necessarily to Ngayong Filipino or Lucille, but more importantly to Yusek Aldaba kanina na binanggit kanina niya yung tourism and sports. I'm a little anxious about this overreach. I think we may possibly be encroaching on everyone and everything and not getting anything done for those who need help. Kinatatakutan ko dyan yung tourism kasi syempre wala namang papel sa hotel, restaurant, tourist guide. Siguro yung cultural products na lang ng tourism pwedeng tignan. At the same time, yung sports, wag na natin isama. Ang dai-dai na nga nito, nahihirapan na tayo ng yun sa 9 domains times 11 sectors kada isa. Medyo may UNCTAD na, may WIPO pa, may kung ano-ano. Suggest ko lang, naro muna kasi yung DTI sinakop na yung tourism and sports. Medyo kabado lang ako, baka hindi natin kayanin.
And the National Live Events Coalition also mentioned that yung sports, recreation, exhibition. So anyway, please submit your position papers para ano po namin talaga mapag-aralan din po namin. Okay, so we'll now recognize Ma'am Palaganas of the anong group mo, Ma'am? The
Philippine Fashion Coalition.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Senator Marcos. I'm Esma Palaganas of the Philippine Fashion Coalition, and actually would like to recognize also the board members that are part of the room right now: Jackie Aquino, Teresa Evangelista Cruz, Fermina Sanchez Jacob, Gina T, and Enriquez. So the Philippine Fashion Coalition is the first National Business Support Organization of the Filipino fashion industry. PFC reiterates our appreciation for the opportunity to provide inputs on this matter, as we've already sent our position paper and comments to the Council. We've been working closely for the past few months during the pandemic. PFC was formed during the pandemic with the PTRI, DOST, DTI, DOI, CITEM, DCP, and NCCA on policy development to help the fashion industry. So again, PFC has already sent our position paper for this. The Philippine Fashion Coalition recognizes that representation in the CID's council should also include voices from the grassroots level. Fashion at the superficial level might seem to be just design, but on a deeper level, we are working with textile mills that directly work with farmers and the agricultural sector. The coalition also supports the indigenous roots in the Philippines, who bring so much back to the Filipino culture and whose traditional indigenous textiles have been lately vulnerable to copying. Aside from design, we also cover other fashion industries such as fashion events, the creative sector, textile weaving and manufacturing, models as well, cultural communities in relation to textile, modeling agencies, and design-driven manufacturing. We are deemed as a sunset industry, but with the current changes in the global consumption and global fashion sustainable movement, sustainability is actually a rising movement that the Filipino fashion industry can take part of. We hope that the industries like ours, with ties with local communities nationwide, that has proven to have good opportunities to be commercially viable and support existing industries such as audiovisual industries, be heard in the creation of this concept. So the three art forms that have always defined civilization as the architecture, visual arts, and costume. And we're so grateful to be heard in this room and creating this film. Rest assured that we will continue to support the endeavors of the Honorable Senate and will continue to participate in this process. We will likewise submit additional inputs as and when necessary and or when required. We hope that the inputs that we have just submitted will be given due consideration for the benefit of all stakeholders and of the Philippine fashion industry as a whole. That will be it for the Philippine Fashion Coalition. And again, thank you so much for inviting us into this room today.
Thank you for the inputs, ma'am. Let's go to the Games Developer Association of the Philippines.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to
Yes.
observe. Yeah, I just like to observe following Ms. Palagana's presentation that in fact fashion has been a primary driver of the so-called orange economies or the creative industries in Latin America. Nagkaroon sila ng Manny Pacquiao ng mga designer na pumatok sa Hollywood, and it basically changed the game entirely for the creative industries in Latin America.
Kaya natin lumaban dun sa field na yan, di ba, ma'am? Kaya natin. Okay, so kahit sa games din, ito rin sa games. At si Mr. Hulag.
Yes, sir. Good morning. So after hearing everyone, especially Senator Aimee, we don't want to waste any more time. As through Senator Aimee's experience, lots of efforts have been done, but nothing happened, even with giving everyone equal representation. At this current point in time in the pandemic, you have to look back at what actually survived during this pandemic. And this is what can carry our country forward. And the only real industry that survived was the people in digital. So in discussions like leadership or placing importance on incentives, I think it will benefit us greatly if we all have to agree that any leader, any incentive at this point in time should be centered on people who are digital, industries who are already digital. I mean, I'm very Filipino. I've been promoting the country all my life. But if our efforts will have a chance of succeeding, we have to move on something which is winnable. And there's nothing else right now but digital. So to have a non-IT person or group to lead this effort, I think that they will just go down as with the other efforts beforehand. I hope I did not insult anyone here. I just want to be practical. Okay, let's win a winnable battle. Let's stay digital. That's it. Thank you.
But your sector, sir, can probably be promoted and or protected by different industry councils, di ba?
Yes.
If you belong to the creatives industry and they want you to count you as one of them, welcome nyo na. And then I'm sure you also have another field which will be promoting you, the high-tech sector, the science sector.
I have no problem with that. But our problem, as earlier stated by Senator Aimee, is just we're trying to recognize everyone. And we can't. We can't. We can't. So I just think we have to, when we make our decision on how this bill should be ratified or approved, that being digital or already having a previous history on doing activities which are digital should weigh the heaviest. Having leaders who have done something digital before, because this will benefit everyone who we can invest in.
Yeah.
Diba?
Okay.
Ganun
But
talaga.
sige sir, basta the creatives industry welcomes you, and bagsak yata kayo rin sa animation and game development doon kayo, di ba? And then there will be some other industry groupings which will welcome you. Sigurado ako doon because you are that important, and the future, you represent also the future.
Yes sir. Piñata. Thank you.
Alvin, ano bang games na pwede natin ipagmayabang na gawang Pilipino?
Wala pa at this moment, but marami kasi sa atin yung malalaki, yung mga nasa service industry din kami. So, there's quite a few companies here that have done work for PlayStation and ako naman sa Xbox. And those are big, huge, multi-billion-dollar games. So yun usually ang pinagmamayabang namin when we're trying to promote the country. But as an original Filipino creation, a game, wala pa naman siguro licensing. So, but it's coming, sir. It's coming. Medyo we are unified in that aspect. It's our common dream.
Thank you. Okay, so
Actually, sa totoo lang, Chairman Coco, kung minsan napakahaba, very long tail kasi ang animation and games, kaya nag-i-invest yung iba't ibang Southeast Asian countries, except the Philippines, kaya kung ano-ano na na-develop sa Thailand at Malaysia, na kung tutuusin, pati Vietnam, mas may talent naman ata tayo. Yun nga lang, buhos talaga, tinutodo talaga ng gobyerno ang tulong sa kanila. Samantalang dito, si Alvin, pareho ko, alam kung magkano yung taxes, yung excise, yung taripa na ini-impose sa Xbox. Halimbawa, patay kang bata dyan pag nagpasok ka. Pag inismagal mo, mas lalo kang huling-huli. Kaya yan yung mga issue namin, pati yung mga camera, yung mga software, pati yung mga heavy duty at malalaking computer. Ang mamahal po rito, minsan 6 times the price elsewhere.
Exactly. Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you. At least may natututunan na kami sa inyo. Okay, so Mr. Paul Morales of Artist Welfare. Sige, go ahead, sir.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Senator Pimentel, tatanong ko lang po, meron po ba kayong Committee on Culture?
Yes.
Sa Senado. Meron din po.
Yes, we have.
Opo. Anyway, para po sa artist welfare at para sa mga artista, ako po ay nagkatrabaho sa performing arts industry. So siguro maaari din ako magsalita ng kaunti para sa amin. Ang obserbasyon ko lang is we're all very supportive at very excited for this creation of this Creative Industries Act and these initiatives. Nagsubmit na rin po kami ng aming position paper. Ang nais lang namin ipaalaala is sana'y mabigyan pa natin ng halaga yung kultura nga. Kasi sinasabi natin lagi na culturally and economically, pero kung makikita natin, ang karamihan ng framework ay nandoon pa rin sa punto ng ekonomiya. Natama rin naman kasi ito nga po yung bagong ekonomiya ng mundo. No? Information and creativity is the new industrial revolution. Papunta na po tayo sa creativity and information. Kung papansin po natin, lahat ng mga sinasabi natin mga bayan, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, at lahat ng to. Katulad ng minention ni Attorney K kanina, meron po silang malakas na Department of Culture. At kaya natutuwa po kami doon sa Section 5 na may nakalagay na kailangan natin mag-reorganize ng ating cultural agencies. Hindi po natin sinasabing masama yung ating mga cultural agencies, pero alam po nating lahat na may mga pagkukulang ito sa mga batas, sa overlapping ng kanilang responsibilidad, sa kakulangan ng agency para magsalita para sa kultura. So, dun po sa aming proposal, sana maglagay lang tayo ng caveat na nakarugtong ito. Sa aming experience, for example, sa Singapore, at also implied in the well-worded bill by Senator Marcos, na ang implementation ng ganitong batas ay dadaan din sa mga ahensya natin sa kultura. Kaya babalik pa rin tayo sa ideya na hindi lang kailangan natin ng economic plan, nangangailangan din tayo ng isang planong pangkultura. Ano ba yung mahalaga para sa ating mga Pilipino? Ano yung nais nating pagyamanin? Hindi lang natin nais pagyamanin yung ating bulsa, pero yung puso din natin, yung ating kaluluwa, yung ating pagka-Pilipino. So yun lang po. At katulad po dun sa House bill sessions, napakalaki po ng participation, napaka-interesado ng mga tao. Napakalaki ng mga sektor. Kung isipin natin yung performing arts, napakalaking sektor din. At katulad ng sabi mula sa gaming industry, kahit ang performing arts natin ngayon ay napupunta na rin sa digital at tumatawid na lahat. Gumagawa lang mga paraan para makapag-present ng bagong paraan. For example, yung CCP Dance Company, nag-present sila ng drive-in movie. So ginawa nilang pelikula yung kanilang sayaw sa Shoemart, inibita nila yung mga tao doon. So ibig sabihin, nag-iiba na siya, nagkakaroon ng bagong paraan. So yun lang po, sabi din namin sa aming manifestation paper, napakahalaga ng ideya ng ano ba yung pagka-Pilipino, yung ating identity. So sana kahit sa maliit na paraan ay mabigyan ng sistema ito. At sana din ma-share sa amin ng ating mga mambabatas kung ano pa yung maaari nating gawin. Kasama din kami dun sa nag-advocate for Department of Culture na alam natin ay nasa National Economic Development Plan. In fact, isa po siyang priority legislation nakasaad doon. So hinahanap pa rin po namin yun. Pero kung meron po tayong ibang mga solusyon para dito, maaari din naman nating isipin. Gayunpaman, we really support the idea of the Creative Industries Act and Bill kasi nga napakahalaga nito. Pero yun lang nga po, sana ay maalala natin na kultura din po natin yung ating pinapagalaw dito at pwede nating pagyamanin. Salamat po.
Thank you for that, sir. Mr. Del Rosario, you want to be recognized, sir? You're with the Animation Council of the Philippines.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chair Coco and Senator Aimee and the rest of the group. Yes, I just want to make a manifestation on behalf of the Animation Council of the Philippines. So Animation Council of the Philippines, or ACPI, supports Senate Bill 411. We hope that the bill will serve as a catalyst for the animation industry's growth in terms of commercialization and lucrative consumption of IP content and animation services here and abroad. ACPI represents a 40-year effort of animation services worldwide, a source of creative content generation and other associated production in 2D, 3D, visual effects, and the like. Our current pool of about 10,000 full-time artists and a growing freelancer thrives on these animation services. The local animation industry has proven to be pandemic-proof, and we hope we can be given exposure and funding to further expand its value proposition, its value chain, and expansion of its local creative ecosystem. We see the growth of independent creative entrepreneurs in the animation and game industry, the needed creator of IP protection and rights, and constant rapport of the private sector, such as our own, promoting animation content and services. We believe the future of monetization of creative outputs, whether it be original content generation or global animation services for commercialization, again, increases our gains in commerce and trade in the global arena. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair. Maraming salamat po.
Hello?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Pakimute mo na yung okay. Thank you, Mr. Del Rosario. You said pandemic proof, talaga. Talagang what are our figures?
Hindi naman sa pagmayabang, sir, natanong niya. Because I myself I run a studio myself, called Toot City, and we got hit at the beginning of the pandemic. In parentheses, 2009 was our best year. Pandemic came and we were hit by about 30% bumaba yung business, primarily because of bandwidth concerns and yung work from home disruption. I'm proud to say that in 2021, I think we will beat our 2019 records, if not equal that. So all that to say, the potential is there, and the animation industry worldwide is really grappling with talents. And the Philippines, proven, sa akin hulang experience myself, 65% of our workforce are not four-year graduates. In other words, inherent ho talaga sa Pilipino ang creative talent. So yan, countryside development, easy. Kasi proven Bacolod, Camarines Sur, Cavite, all the way up to Northern Luzon, yung mga talents ho namin, hindi ho four-year course graduates. Meanwhile, we are serving, the Disneys of this world, France and what have you. So yeah, proven, pandemic proof ho, Senator.
So we wish you all the best, sir.
Maraming salamat po, and we look forward to this.
Thank you for the inputs. We now listen to the Philippine Motion Picture Producers Association. Legal counsel is here, Attorney Kat Maniego. And then DepEd, please prepare if you want to also say something. DepEd is next. So yes, Attorney Maniego.
Hello, good morning po, Senator Pimentel and Senator Marcos and everyone in the room. On behalf of the PMPPA, we just like to express our support for this bill. We welcome any developmental efforts for the for the creative industries of the Philippines. We will be submitting our position paper on the bill, but I think more of our questions, and that we see clarification on mostly matters regarding representation and mostly how the council that will be established through this bill will operate and how it will seek to actively protect the interests of all the industries that are mentioned under the bill. We note certain concerns such as it was actually discussed earlier on the rationale behind the 4 independent council members plus the chairman, but we were just wanting to ask how the 11 industries will be fairly represented from the 4 who will be selected to be part of the council. Next, we would like to see clarification if the council will be purely developmental or will there be regulatory kind of powers attached to them. And we'd also like to also be able to participate in suggesting programs relative to our own industries, which is mostly the film industry, the film and television industry by association. And then our last concern is mostly there was one of the sections in the bill pertains to reorganization of existing government agencies, and so we would actually just like we're expressing our interest in how that will be done. All other opinions will be expressed in our position paper, but that will be mostly it from the PMPPA. We would very much like to thank the senators, Senator Marcos and Senator Pimentel, for giving us the opportunity to express our support for this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Is DepEd still around? DepEd? Kasi meron silang manifestations sa chat room eh. So anyway.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Yes, who is this, please? Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Sullivan?
I'm Samuel Sullivan, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I am joined by Miss Eileen Supnad and Miss Christine Magboo. Mr. Chair, we like to extend our appreciation and support to this Senate bill that promotes creative industries. We say so because in our K-12 curriculum, we also include learning competencies and curriculum standards are relevant to creative industries that are captured in our programs, like our special programs in the arts, special programs in journalism, even in our technical vocational education, like home economics, industrial arts, ICT as well, wherein we also promote entrepreneurship. So in our senior high school, Mr. Chair, we also have our arts and design, and then our science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Yes, Mr. Chair, we will submit our official position paper, and we also appeal that the Department of Education be considered in the Creative Industries Council. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Good points, good points siya. So, tinuturo pala extensively na rin sa K-12. Mr. Sullivan, subjects which develop creativity. Yan importante eh.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
O sige, ayusin natin kasi nalala ko, Senator Amy, yung speech ni Senator Win Gatchalian. Problema pa. So ayusin natin yung curriculum natin din. Sige. Okay, so sino pa? Who else wants to express their position or opinion? Barbie Atienza? Okay, Barbie, you're still here? Of United Print Multimedia Group, UPMG. Is Mr. Barbie Atienza still here? So they're having some technical glitches pala. Okay. So they will just submit their position paper. So anybody else?
Sir Chair, if I may be recognized, please.
Oh, yes. Sandali. Yes, SICAP President, Mr. Magu Del Mundo. What is SICAP, sir? Magu,
Sir,
what?
yes, sir. SICAP, we're the Creative Content Creators Association of the Philippines. I know it's a mouthful. That's why we just opt to go by SICAP na lang po.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. But first and foremost, we thank you, Sir Chair, and Senator Marcos for this opportunity to be part of this historic moment in the Philippines, especially in the area of the creative industries. And we would like to express our full support with this endeavor. We have already previously submitted our position paper to the COMSEC, but we would just like to raise two what we feel are important points that we would like to be placed on record here. First and foremost, we would like to request or suggest a proposal to add in the functions and duties of the council to create and maintain a fund for development of original IP for local producers and creators, or for a co-production between a local producer and a foreign producer wherein local ownership is at least 40%. The reason why we say this is because a lot of the creators of original content are not are individuals. They may be working for a studio, but the idea is theirs. And as was expressed earlier, a lot of the areas of our creative industries are focused on service. But we have proven a track record also growing in the past 5 years. It's very short, but it is growing, that we have successful original Filipino content outside, being consumed outside of the country and not even known here in the local, in the domestic market. Some of these examples are Alpha Besties. This is a 3D animated educational series teaching children how to speak in English and read in English. This is currently being broadcasted in Korea, Taiwan, and Japan, but not in the Philippines. We also have Barangay 143, which debuted here in the Philippines with GMA7, but they are now also on the different platforms, Netflix, and the other local distributors around Asia. And if I'm not mistaken, they recently entered the United Kingdom. We also have authors, amazing writers, fiction writers like David Anthony Chan from Cebu, who is a best-selling author in the US and in the UK, but he's not known here. So the reason why this happens is because there are a lot of independent creators who are looking for support, looking for seed funding, to get things done, but they can't seem to find it here. So they end up looking outside of the country. And nangyayari po, sadly, is that these other countries say, oh, well, then it's now primarily a kunyari, American or Korean production, even if you're a Filipino creator, kasi we're paying for more than 50 or 60% of your production cost or your development fee. So that's one reason po na we saw in the different FGDs we've been having, that a lot of creators would love to maintain it to be Filipino identity, Filipino branded, to proudly say we are Filipino, but they're lacking the support financially. So it's one of the suggestions we propose, that perhaps I'm hoping that can be a consideration. Another one, my last suggestion to this would be to support initiatives by creator-focused organizations to develop local content creators on both the academic and economic level. Very much as like what DepEd said, that they are starting in the K-12 system. I also sit on 2 different animation councils in the region. And when I get to talk with the other people, the creatives from Korea, from Taiwan, from Thailand, that is what they're doing as early po as elementary, as grade 4. They already have business side of the creative, not just the creator, or not just the creative aspect, not learning only how to draw, but learning how to be able to monetize their work as early as grade 4. So they're being taught IP, they're being taught copyright. Of course, not so in depth, but it's seeded. Their minds are seeded with that idea na, hey, I'm not just drawing lang. I can actually monetize this. This is a valid career path. As a good example po, I met, surprisingly one of the FGDs, I met this 15-year-old girl. She's from the Philippines. She is currently she's currently writing a webtoon comic for Korea, and apparently she's kind of semi hit there, and she's earning 5 figures to 6 figures a month at 15 years old. And that's the potential that we have for our creatives. And that's why we are so excited with this bill. We just would really love to hope that creators also can be recognized as an individual and an intentional part. Because creators, as the IPO Phil, as Director Kuyo has mentioned earlier, no, it is, at the end of the day, it is being copyright centric that makes, is at the core of everything we're doing in the creative industries. And we would love to see that the future generations will grow and build on this effort that you, sir, are doing. You and Senator Marcos have been establishing here. So thank you po so much for this opportunity, and good day, sir.
Ano ulit yung talent to 15-year-old? Ano yung what is he or she creating?
She's creating po webtoon, so it's a Korean style of comics. Di pa, we have the comics that we know like Marvel, DC, no? Then we have the manga, which is the Japanese style of comics. Now, Korea has their own style. It's called webtoons, based on a popular platform there. So similar siya ni China, where it's one panel, one frame. So it's more of layout and storytelling devices. So she's at 15 years old. Yes po.
She's based here in the Philippines, that girl.
Yes po,
So
based po in Laguna.
Self-study yan.
Yes po. So
Oh,
again, to going back to the ano na, pero the advantage po that she had was that she had somebody, I think her kuya ata used to work in Korea or something like that. Na he told her the business side na, hey, you're good. You tell a decent story compared to the quality that the Koreans are producing. I mean, try it. She tried. She got accepted. She's paid a salary on top of her royalties at 15 years old.
yeah.
And and
Yeah.
and if we can get something like that and develop the future generations, it is true that the dream of having the creative industries as an economic driver for our country is something within reach.
Kaya nga, we have to tell more stories like that eh, na para madaling maka-inspire yun. Imagine mo yun. No?
Mr. Chair, may alaga kami sa Ilocos, 9 years old. Ganun din, hindi webtoons, pero yung graphic novels. Parang may particular talent ang Pilipino. Kasi nako-combine natin yung writing at saka yung visual, yung drawing and drafting and layouting. Parang nako-combine yung left and right side ng brain. Ika nga, yung Pilipino tells stories that while they are derived from local sources, have universal appeal. Ang problema kasi sa ibang Asian, hindi masyadong worldview. Hindi masyadong malawak yung worldview. Kaya, I agree na sa ating SICA President na talagang may unique contribution ng Pilipino sa area ng webtoons, manga, ng graphic novels, at iba pang mga effort katulad nito.
Senator Marcos, if I may just add quickly, we also have another, I forgot his name, I met him briefly, he's a Filipino, but he does naman Western style, DC style, Marvel style comics. And it's black and white, it's cross-hatched, meaning pencil lang shading. And he's a big hit in France. Like, he is sikat in France and nobody knows he exists here. He doesn't even participate in the local comic groups. So, I mean, we have these stories of individual, and when you ask them, I asked them, so why not here? Well, they all have us the same ano, no? They usually say, well, kasi lumapit naman ako dito pero I didn't get the support. Or pinagtawanan ako kasi hindi daw bebenta. And I think one of the edges they had was there was somebody who took the time to tell them, hey, you know, this is the business strategy behind it. This is how you can monetize your work. Right? And that's true. If you want to have a sustainable creative economy, sustainable creative industry, yes, I'm all for developing the service side. We need that, definitely. But and I know the argument for the creative, the IP side is that it's matagal. But there are ways, and well, if it is matagal, we should definitely start now because the return is really great also. If we can also start, you know, creating IP that is consumed globally, that puts our culture the same way how we are now so big fans of K-drama, kimchi, and whatever Korean food there may be, because they have been exporting their culture through their webtoons, their K-dramas. We can do the same and make the Filipino truly global po.
Siguro dapat sikap ikwento ninyo kay Chairman Pimentel yung problema ng animation. Tayo yung kauna-una nag-umpisa niyan, pero puro service industry. Naging ink and color lang lahat halos. So, parang cheap labor lang ang Pilipinas, nag-umpisa sa Disney, lahat ng uri ng Mickey Mouse, pagkatapos ganun din yung Japan. Pero parang na-stymie na tayo doon. Kasi ang kailangan ngayon, original content, own copyright. Yun talaga ang next level. Hindi
Yes,
naman
Senator
pwedeng
Marcos.
nandun na lang tayo forever. But it's so expensive and so long tail, nobody can sustain it for 6, 8 years. Perhaps that is necessary to develop a story. So talagang kailangan ng government support.
Yes, we totally agree po, Senator Marcos. And to just, if I may just quickly add on what you said regarding that po, yung the struggles of the animators. Not just for animation, but also in games and also in comics. Now, it's funny because we actually, we did a study, we've actually did a study for the past 2 years. We were tracking this and looking at the numbers, no? Filipinos, if you think about it, we are paid the smallest. Let's say for the Avengers movie, no, we're paid the smallest to work on it, to create the stuff, pero we have to pay ourselves to watch what we made, and we don't even get a piece of the rights. So it's kind of ironic now. We put a lot of the sweatshop that was mentioned here by Miss Jenny, no, in the chat. We are like a sweatshop, pero and like what Senator Marcos said, yes, it's true. We should be owning the IP. Kasi if you look at it po, you earn while doing nothing once it's out there. As long as it's amazingly distributed And of course, we'd also like to recognize that FDCP has been very active in supporting the animation sector in that, no, with whatever budget they have. And it's nice that they're sharing to the animation and comics and game sector. Thank you so much, Chair Lisa, for that. But we would just like to hope that maybe the council can consider also finding a way to have even just a small fund at first, and see how to grow that, so we can have more of these hidden Filipino gems become inspirations and aspirations for the next generation of creators for our country, to drive the economy of our country. Thank you po so much.
Thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to your position paper, Magu. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have a message from the Directors Guild of the Philippines, Mr. Paolo Villaluna. They will just be sending their position paper because their signal is intermittent. So, okay, so I hope we can finish in 15 minutes siguro. Let's try to finish in 15 minutes. So, si Lisa, you want to say something pa? Pero wait, Lisa, let's give chance muna first to the to Shir Dubal of the National Parks Development Committee. Are you still here, ma'am?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Let me just manifest our support to this bill. The National Parks Development Committee is an attached agency of the Department of Tourism, and we strongly support the establishment of a creative industry development council to promote and preserve our cultural identity and heritage and help boost the country's creative economy. The enactment of this bill into law would certainly develop the various creative industries, strengthen the intellectual property rights, and provide necessary aid and incentives to our very capable and talented Filipino artists. We at NPDC believe that the creative industry is an important driver for the deepening of cultural identity as well as bringing awareness of Filipino heritage and culture to the world. This includes featuring Filipino heritage and the integration of our culture and history into the products and creation of these different creative industries. We continue to be open to opportunities to work with local artists to showcase their works against the backdrop of Luneta and Paco Park, and we strongly support this move to strengthen our creative industries. This is all, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for inviting us to this meeting.
Thank you for that manifestation. So, Lisa?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Gusto ko lang pong i-emphasize yung importansya ng funding. Para po, consider po natin together with the creation of the council. Napaka-importante po talaga ng funding. Kung talagang gusto po natin siyang makita as an industry, we really need to support and fund these creative industries and these creative sectors. Just to give you an idea, wala po tayong ginagawa kundi sabihin, ay, ang galing ng Korea, wow, grabe, yung mga pelikula nila talagang worldwide na, it's great. $500 million investment by Netflix on Korea just for their projects late this year. But if you look at the budget of just the Korean Film Council alone, it's $100 million. So they are really funding through venture capital funding, meaning nag-i-invest po sila sa mga commercial Korean content. And then they have a support fund for the art house, yung hindi po ganon kalaki yung revenue, just to really activate as well, to incubate and support those startups and yung mga independent sectors po na gumagawa rin ng content. Pero ganun po kalaki ang kanilang suporta. Yung counterpart agency po ng Creative Industry Development Council na binubuo po natin ngayon, it's KOCA, the Korean Content Agency, has $460 million in terms of their budget for the support of Korean content. So this is very important po to invest on our creative industries as we create and solidify and formalize these creative industries po. Because ang maganda po dito sa industriya namin, buo na po yung industry. Actually, pagpasok po ng service, meron po tayo, ito pong IP creation track na sinusuportahan natin, ito po yung kailangan natin i-incubate. Pero yung service sector din na kailangan din po nating suportahan ngayon at talagang ongoing po, incoming po lahat, ng mga projects at services. Just on the FDCP alone, I just want to share with you, we have an incoming project po na ang spend po, one project lang po is 300 million pesos. Distributed as qualified production expense in the different allied sectors. Kailangan po nito ng suporta pagdating sa cash rebate po na ibinibigay natin sa kanila. And right now po, we have 20 projects na nakalinya po para po magbigay ng suporta sa bansa. So, hindi po tayo manghihinayang sa ibibigay nating support dahil nandyan po, hindi po tayo magbibigay ng, pagdating po sa rebates natin, hindi po tayo magbibigay ng rebate kung wala pong papasok na pera dito. So, I hope that our committee, of course, Chair and Senator Amy, can consider this and will humbly submit all of these data that we already have with the launch of the Film Philippines program last year, so that we can continue and just really galvanize po ito pong nangyayari ngayon currently already dito po sa ating sector. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you for that, Lisa. I think Section 6 is the provision involved there. So, bantayan natin yung wording siguro. Pwede nating i-expand or gawing mas eksakto. Sige. Thank you. So, we have a manifestation from NCCA. They will just submit a position paper. The problem is the internet. Hindi ba kasali sa creative industry internet? Ano? I mean, no, but
Grabe, malaking bagay.
all the reasons given are bad signal. Anyway, so anybody else who wants to be heard before? You were raising your hand, Mr. De Rosario, kanina? Sir?
Yes, sir. No, to Senator Amy's point, no? Chair, yung pangalan na Wills Protasio at saka Harvey Tulibaw, parehong Pinoyan. Sa Amerika, sinasambaho talaga yan, ng Comic-Con. Comic-Con is the biggest animation and comics event in the world. Pinupuntahan niya nila Transformer, lahat ng Hollywood actors. But all that to say, yung dalawang yun pangalan na yun, talagang sinasambaho yun. All this to say that talent is proven and tested. So talagang kailangan lang talaga ho natin ng funding to get these IPs. And by the way, yung sweatshop na nabanggit kanina, Senator Amy, I just want to say, well, parang gano'n na nga nangyari sa animation industry, no? Hindi naman I'm proud to say, Mr. Chair, that the average salary of even the beginner ng animation artist is already about 28 to 30,000 a month. No? So yung mga magagaling talaga, they make as much as 200,000, 250,000 a month. So in other words, ang laki ng variation ng talent talaga. Yung magaling seasoned artist as much as $250,000 a month, and all the way down to about 20,000. So it's not that bad. However, yes, I agree. We need to elevate our game to IP creation kasi nandun na rin yung talent sayang. Yun lang po. Salamat.
So thank you. The DOLE will I request the DOLE to just submit na lang in the interest of time siguro, submit your section on labor standards. Very good idea po yan. That's most welcome. The NHCP will also just submit their position paper according to Ian Alfonso. And the IGA will also submit the position paper to the committee. Thank you. According to Patty Lapus. Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Chair, from DTI po.
Yes, ma'am. Yusek Aldaba.
Mr. Chair, I just forgot to mention earlier, but in the preparation of the Strategic Investment Priority Plan under the CREATE, we as pointed out earlier, the creative sector would fall under Tier 3, and we already created a separate section which would contain all the priority sectors under the creative. And hindi po ibig sabihin na yung mga minention kanina, lahat doon magfo-fall. as what Senator Amy emphasized, importante po na magkaroon ng prioritization. And yun po yung magiging output din ng roadmap that we are currently formulating. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Marcos.
Yes, thank you very much, Yusek Aldaba. That's very reassuring kasi medyo nako-confuse sa SIPP ng ang ating mga creatives kung saan sila at kung sakop lahat. Pero I just like to bring up the fact that there are 2 pending bills. I think I'm not certain if they've been consolidated as one. They're already, Chairman Pimentel, you probably know better. They've already been sponsored in plenary, and these are the bills of Joel Villanueva, Senator Villanueva, and Senator Angara with regard to the gig economy and the contractual workers na sa palagay ko siguro basahin na rin ng ating mga DOLE group para makita yung labor standards na naroon kasi kung minsan yung online workers talagang dehado at naaabuso.
Thank you for that. Okay, and according to Ma'am Ria Matute, for a city to attract the creative class, it must possess the 3 T's: so talent, tolerance, and technology. So we have to. The bill will not solve all of this, so we have to work together, no, and provide all of these required T's to create a creative city or a creative class.
Mr. Chair, it's not from me, but it's from the book of Richard Florida. Just to I'm not parang they're not my words, but they're really a quotation from one of the authors as well as the global expert in creative cities and the creative class, which is Richard Florida.
Yes, correct. And according to Mr. Carlos Sigion Reyna, they will just submit position paper, DGPI and the IGA. So thank you for that, Sir Carlos. So anybody else? Okay, so I think we have to form our technical working group, no, Senator Amy, kasi medyo still a lot of work to be done. Yung composition ng council, maybe the purpose, the funding, according to Lisa, and the reorganization, yung affected, what is the extent of the reorganization of the affected government agencies. So we will form the technical working group as soon as possible. Invite all of you. A lot of you have manifested your intention to be actively involved, so please do so. You're most welcome. So okay, Senator Marcos, anything else? Wala na. Sige, so on behalf of the committee and of Senator Marcos, I would like to thank everyone for spending time with us, contributing your creativity, your imagination, your genius with this committee, so that we can come up with something to help the industry and all of the creative Filipinos that we have. Yung concern ni Mr. Paul Morales, we have heard it, and if this bill does not address it, we will have to address it in a separate bill, sir. Culture, promotion and protection of culture, for its own sake, not for commercialization or monetization. I hope I got your main message, sir. So anyway, so thank you very much again. So we now, I think we can safely terminate our hearing na, Senator Marcos, so we can work on it, work on the bill. So okay, so with that, our hearing is hereby terminated, and thanks again to everyone. Bye-bye.
So nice.